Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Tuesday. It's March 5th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And a quick look at our daily chart. You can see we did get a follow through selling, actually a really big downtrend. Once again, we took a good bit of it back. Notice how once we got below that midline, now this midline that's on this blue channel. So if this or gray or what, the darker colored one, the green one's out here, we really are close to the midline, and maybe that was close enough to the midline on the envelope bands. But it looks like to me it bounced at this support here, which also just happens to look like it's off that midline on the gray channel. So we'll have to see if that channel's in play. Notice we didn't get up to this trend line on it, but we turned down off the green trend line. So I'm not sure if we're going to get some follow through tomorrow or if we've already bottomed here, and really, again, it's been very rare to get more than a couple of days of sell off, and usually we get the big rally before it takes off again. You can see we had a big rally here right at the close or just before the close. So it's very likely that this thing may go upwards again tomorrow, but we'll have to see. Maybe we'll get some, maybe things are changing. Maybe we'll get some follow through buying. We'll just have to see what tomorrow brings. But there's what it looks like today. Really bearish downtrend. Although right at the 230 cutoff, the market started rallying, and we rallied about, I would say, it looks like we rallied about from 50.63 or so to, we rallied about 40 points. That's a pretty good rally. We took a good bit of it back, although it was a pretty strong sell-off. But let's flip over there to our 2,000 tick chart where you can see how I see it, and we'll go through the trades. Okay, you can see it here, two-tiered channel working down. Started out with this, looked like we just had this khaki, but it had a break early. But sometimes if you can get a break during the overnight session, it'll get back in the channel and it'll continue to go till it gets another break in a new low. Looks like we were trying to rally out of there, and then the next thing you know, it's turned down again. So draw your trend line off those two swings, and you can clearly see that midline working down through there. And we bounced 3 different times off this lower side here. I believe this was an overshoot, and you can see how prices just shot out of there and shot up and didn't really make the break up here and come back and have a retest. And we never really even got this confirmed. It just was so weak that we never could get back to that trend line. We tried several times here, and it just kept going lower. This thing was really weak till after 2:30, and then of course some buying comes in when the market gets thin, and they tend to take some of it back. But we didn't come anywhere close to filling the gap. Here's where we closed yesterday, the red line. Here's where we opened today, and usually prices will attempt to fill that and try to fill it. Not today. This market was just way too weak. Now you did have to be really patient today, because there's nothing going on. The first trade's not till right after 9 o'clock. Now there was a 9 o'clock a.m. News item there too. So otherwise you might have had a little sooner trade, but it's a few minutes after 9 before we even get our first setup. There's just nothing going on. There's a good trend working down here, but there's no setup. So. But let's zoom in and we'll look at it and go through these trades, and I'll kind of show you here. But 7:30 came, or I'm sorry, 7 o'clock came just as we're making this low here. And then we just got in this channel, and there's a possible long right here, but really we traded down into this, even though we do have a break and a couple of legs down. I mean, I thought hard about that one, but you're trying to pick the lows, and you see we went much, much lower. even though this would have worked, it just is not worth it. I mean, you probably could argue for that to be green, but there's no shorts up here and there's no further longs, and then we drop down again. We're working up here. There's a second entry long here, and they are matching lows here. But this bar is so big, you got to go long right into the highs there, double top really. And the second entry really triggered on the tick above that bar. And so you really just didn't get a chance to enter it. And the next thing you know, you've made a new high here and you're working lower. This trade here, if it would have broke higher and turned down, maybe you enter that on the engulfing bar on the second entry. Or basically a lower high after a break and a new high. But it would be a second entry too, because there's a new low right here and you get a first entry, and it turned back up. So when it came back by there, that's a second entry. Actually, let me zoom in here. I may be wrong on that. Yeah, this actually broke lower right here. So no, the second entry triggered right there, and this turned back up and then turned back down. So no, that would not have been an entry there, even if it was a better setup. There's a lower high here, but you get two dojis side by side with matching lows, so you can't really enter there. You're just in congestion here, and then we're too close to the news. And it's too bad we didn't get a setup up here. If you had a setup up here, by all means, take this short. Being that far away from the EMA, look at that channel. You get a close outside, a move to a new high, 2-bar matching high, but neither one of my signal bars looks good enough. And then the bottom just drops out of it. But finally, just after 9 o'clock, you finally get your first break of this channel, and you get a first entry, second entry, nice bearish bar. That's a perfect setup right there in a downtrend after a real bearish downtrend. You'd prefer it to be off the EMA, but this is good enough. I like this one. And then you get another second entry here. The only problem is that looks a little congested. I'm not crazy about it, but it's also a first entry, second entry, so it's a failure too. It's not really where you're looking for a failure, but really what you're doing is you're testing the EMA a few times here, and it's holding on the bottom side. So you're really in essence just playing the resistance there in a downtrend, and we haven't made a new low, and there is plenty of room down to that low. So if we break through here, so I marked it green. I went back and forth about it in real time. I wasn't that crazy about it. But we do test that EMA twice, and you do try to go higher a couple of different times there. So maybe you take it. But then it drops on down and it's going sideways again, and you really get almost a repeat pattern here where you retest. This confirms that trend line, and it's like it's a little failed breakout of this little range. Similar to this one, except you got more room here. And it does confirm the trend line. So I like going short on that one. And then now it's a repeat pattern when it almost happens again here. You get a little failed breakout. This one doesn't close back in the range, but that's actually better because the supports are way down here. So I think but I still like that one because this is a strong downtrend, and we're not down to the lower side of the channel, which, the channel wouldn't necessarily be set down here yet, but this channel's still in play, and this is, you might argue that's the first break of it, although I don't even know if that's a convincing break outside, but you have to be aware of that little break, but you'd still expect a retest of the lows. And we continue. There's actually another second entry here, but there's not room to scalp out, and that's just a first entry right there. There is a 4-bar matching high, but even if you draw this as a tighter range, there's just not room to get out right there, as you can see. And you don't want to be looking for longs yet, but it turns out the range is a little wider, and you get another failed breakout here. So it's almost another repeat pattern, except on a little bigger. The pattern is a little bigger here. This one did make a new high. There's no EMA there. There's no midline. There's no trend line. So technically, you're better off to wait on a lower high here. I went ahead and marked it because it's a repeat pattern and it's worked multiple times. So maybe you go ahead and take it. Fell out the bottom again. I think it's too early to look for longs. And this is actually like so. And you're working up. You get a close outside, move to a new high. You don't get anything to go short, but you try to go high multiple times there. You just really never get a short set up, and then we're down at the lows again. And you get another failed breakout. This gets back inside, but signal bar is no good. Then we're breaking out the upper side again. And this time, notice what happens. You get a close outside this green channel, 2 legs up to a new high right at the midline of the bigger channel. And you push lower, then you come back and get a lower high right off that midline. I like going short there on the lower high, just trading the resistance of the range. And if you catch that one, that's a pretty good one there. Of course, finally we bounce down here. There's actually a hidden second entry there. I didn't mark it. Part of the reason, because if you draw your trend channel, there's no break and new low or anything. But this is a very strong downtrend. And so maybe you take that that hidden. If it was a true second entry, I'd probably say take it. But since it's hidden, it makes it a little more convoluted. So, maybe we mark it green. And you see it doesn't go far before it bounces and we're headed higher. And that's the danger you take right there coming off if this is the low side of the two-tiered channel. You run up here, you finally get a break, a first entry, second entry. This is another one that's tempting, but that looks a little sideways. This is a bearish market. You probably shouldn't be looking for longs anyway, so I just sat tight on that one. And of course, it runs to a new high, and again, you don't get a setup to go short. It just drops. Comes back. It makes a new low here, though. So that's just a first entry. But suddenly it comes back on the retest, and you get a second entry short with a big bearish bar. Notice that new low, first entry, second entry. That's a good setup right there. I like that one. And then just a few bars later, you get another second entry. And all of these are right off this key entry point. Another second entry right there. And you actually get another second entry right here. And you do get a break in new high, but you also break this main trend line here. But the signal bar is no good on my chart. So unless your chart was different than mine, you had a bearish signal bar there, you can't go short. If you did have a really bearish signal bar right there, you could argue that's a triple test across there. Actually, maybe a quadruple test. You try to go higher once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. So it's a shame you don't get a good signal bar on that second entry, or I'd say take that all day long. Drops on down though, and then a few minutes later you get another second entry short. This time you do get a good signal bar. Runs, so now you got a break, move to a new low, and then it's trying to go higher again. That's just a first entry, and the channel still looks like it's in play, so you can't really go short there. You do get a second entry short here. Notice this new low, first entry, second entry, but that's just too congested, and you can see there's not enough room to scalp out there. So coming back to that support, so you just can't take that. And it actually looks like it would have worked, and that, but second entries are powerful like that. So yeah, but I just don't think you can take it. You get another second entry right here, and again, it would have worked, but like your channel something like this. Because that's your first close outside, and you're not back to the trend line here. You're definitely not back to the main trend line up here. There is a good bit of resistance across there. So it's another one you probably could argue to at least be green, but you just got to be careful with those. So then we make a little double top and we're back in the range again here. There's a good signal bar here, but look how congested, and look how we haven't been able to really break lower lately. So you can't risk that there either. And it drops on down here, but we just don't get a setup until here. Notice you get a first entry and then a second entry, but it's also a break out of the range. It confirms that trend line, and it's a failed break out of the range, and it's a nice signal bar with plenty of room to scalp out. So I like that one. Drops on down. Now I think we're getting an overshoot, and there's another new low right there. So first entry, second entry. So that's another second entry. It's another congested looking one that breaks out and fails. You do have a close outside this channel and a new high, and you do have a very good signal bar. It actually breaks higher and fails and turns down. You could trade that on the engulfing bar too on the second entry and get a little better entry. What scared me though off of this one, it is off the EMA, so you can see it's right off of it. So that, maybe the market's so weak we can't get back to the trend line, but we just came off the high and we haven't gotten back down to the low here. So it's probably going to try a couple of times to get down here before it breaks. And you can see it tried once, twice, 3 times, 4 or 5 times before it gave up. But the biggest problem is, for me, is that this main trend line here, trend channel line, we're overshooting it, and so that concerns me. But a lot of times you get an overshoot, it'll do that a few times, and then it just reversed, and you can see. So it would have been a good trade. I marked it green, but there's some reasons to be concerned with that one. Simple as that. But I thought I would explain to you what I was thinking, what concerned me. And again, it's that we're not back to the trend line on this channel that's still in play. It's a lot of sideways stuff here, so you might trade it as a failed breakout. But to me, the range looks more like this right here. So there's not much room to scalp out before you hit those lows there. It doesn't end up mattering. Plus you got the trend channel line down here. And so all those are concerning. Plus the overshoot. Just several reasons to be concerned. But that's how I saw it today. You had to be patient. There were some really good second entries in here and a strong trend. But you had to be patient. And, maybe tomorrow, it'd be nice to get a real strong trend like this where it just gives you second entries all the way down all day long. But unfortunately, it doesn't always happen that easy. So we have to earn it sometimes. And but if you were patient, there's no reason you couldn't find 2 nice second entry shorts off a trend line here today and make some money. So anyway, not much else you can say about today. Big downtrend day. We did rally late in the afternoon to take some of it back, but we still had a pretty good down day regardless, even with what it took back here. Would have been a really bearish day if it hadn't taken 40 points of it back. But it is what it is. We'll take it, and we'll be back tomorrow to try to do it again. But anyway, I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.